от сигарет кружится, как тези споры, тонкий английский лед, под ним кипящее море. Рюмка на полпальца, где-то усталая печень, но он опять рвется в зал, как будто последняя встреча. Жесткое вино разума обжигает, но будет спящих каждое слово, как выстрел в зал, и не осталось священных щелей, где бы он тихо промолчал. Где-то в Багдаде жара тонет в сарказме и прозе. Он пишет, как режет ножом по мифам на белой бумаге. В студиях, в старых барах, в маленьких залах кампусов он ставит под роспись богов и веру сдает под авансом. Жесткое вино разума обжигает, но будет спящих каждое слово, как выстрел в зал, и не осталось священных щелей, где бы он тихо промолчал. Дело слабее, голос сипит, но шутка выходит точнее. Он поднимает стакан и говорит: поверим, кого соберет скорее. Публика держит дыхание, он не дает ей надежд, только упрямая да к сомнению и пути. И следуй смерть. Честное но разума обжигает, но будет спящий каждое слово, как выстрел в зал, и не осталось священных щелей, где бы он тихо промолчал.
This land was made for you and me. That includes our poor and hungry. If you want to join the fight, come stand with us on the right side of history. Divided we stand, united we fall. In the belly of the beast, fighting fascists, the tyrants.
Well, good evening, everybody, and I will admit this was my fault. I was heavily involved with something that I can't even explain right now. It's
Well,
just,
well,
uh-oh.
there's a number of names for it. I think the most obvious. We'll clean this up a little bit since it is Mother's Day. It's inappropriately touching yourself and enjoying yourself way too much.
Okay. Nostradamus over here, but we'll discuss that with the soothsayer later. But yeah, first of all, before we begin anything, just want to say, Dave and I have a big shout out for Veg. Good to see him again. We know he's been very busy with things and responsibilities and such, and he is back tonight. So he's a big part of our family, and it's good to see Veg. So Veg, it's our salute. It's good to see you, definitely. So, and for those of you who are not Veg, it's good to see you also. It really, really is, as usual. And for those of you who it's your first time here, this is Divided We Stand. You can find us on Facebook and on YouTube. We ask that you become a subscriber to our YouTube channel. It's really, really easy. And the benefit is you don't have to worry about commercials. It's as if you have premium, but you're not paying anything. So that's a good thing. And you're very, very lucky because if you interact with us, generally we interact with you. We don't just pass these things by. Well, sometimes we do, just so many comments, but it's not like the very, very popular channels. I mean, I love listening to Hal Sparks, but that chat room goes flying. You can't get a hold of anything. You can't get through, blah, blah, blah. So it's good to see everybody. Please, please make sure you subscribe if you haven't done so yet on YouTube. On Facebook, you can find us on the group page, Divided We Stand. It's a very, very popular page, and we still are growing. It's been at least 6 years. This is something that David and I have had only planned to do for a year or two. We expected Trump to lose the first time, and that didn't happen. So here we are, and it's really, really bad. So before we begin, I do have a score from the future. The score is a football game. We have William and Mary 73 and the University of Tennessee Volunteers 0. Wouldn't that be a nice thing? We'll explain why in a little bit. But without any further ado, we go to my partner, my co-host, and that is David Price from Arlington, Virginia, and only a step away from Donald Trump. Dave, how are you? And what's the deal down there?
Well, I think I've got a new nickname for you. This may be the most creative of all. If you look at the comments, you are now, for the rest of my lifetime, going to be called Master Damas.
Master Damas, okay.
That is great. That is fun because it explains so much. Now, you come up with some cock. There's that cock and bull.
Right.
Cock
That is
and bull.
Freudian.
Cock and bull story. That you were doing something with school and other. Do you realize that excuse only lasts for about 5 more weeks?
That's right. You are absolutely right, Mr. Price.
And then you will not have that excuse. So you'll have to come up with some other excuse.
And everybody's
for your
here, and
incompetence.
I have to hold myself accountable. I will not have that excuse. I mean, there might be one thing a year, 2 things a year, but no, there's no excuse for me because now I'll have the time. And that means our show should kind of going up to a higher level. I'll be able to dedicate more time to the
Why? Are you going to let... I'm going to run it? Is that what's going to happen?
Yeah, you're going to have the runs. That's why. But we are going to, yeah, it's going to be, I've always, everybody knows I love working with technology and have a lot of fun with AI and videos and audio. But with this show, I haven't really put in any effort in trying to upscale what's going on here. Even though the technology is there, I just haven't done it because of my job. And now, as Dave said, and he's joking, but it's actually right, I don't have any excuse after we get into July. I mean, that July 1st, and there is no responsibility. It is a complete life change. It's almost as if I'm going back to preschool because that's the only time that I really had free time. So we're going to, or it's kind of like a summer, but I don't have to worry about the winter and the spring, so in the fall and all that kind of thing. So it's going to be, for me, I am really looking forward to it. I just want to stay alive, and yeah, I'm really looking for. I don't even think of it as retirement. I just because I'm no different than anybody else. Dave, you obviously had that feel that day after you retired.
Yes,
you can share that with us. But I'm kind of like I think like you, Dave. You as much as you retired, you never stopped. If anything, you kind of upped everything. Would you like to add to that?
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, everyone approaches work differently and approaches retirement differently. Um, I knew, for example, you did not know when you were going to retire. What I mean by that is, we'd have the conversation, and I knew the day that I entered teaching. I knew the year I would retire, and I knew the month that I would retire because schools end in June,
Right.
and so I did the math in 25 years, and I got out. Um, and so again, it didn't dawn on me until that last year. I think when you retire, then that year is something, and it's just not like some people. Oh my God! Some people, like I would say, okay, this is the last Christmas break I have as a teacher. This is the last time that I will see this as a teacher. This is the last time I will do that. And then suddenly I had no plans, and I don't recommend anyone kind of live their life the way I do, because I've just never really planned anything. I mean, I just don't. I'm not that. Um, and so, but we did know that my wife and I, Jude and I, knew that we're going to leave New Jersey because we'd been there for 59 and a half years. And we finally just decided that we would come here after much discussion. And that was
Can
for
you give
one
us
year.
like a summary on why you picked
Okay,
Washington?
yeah, I can do that. Since this is, we
I
can
mean, 'cause
call
you
this.
did leave a place you lived for 59 years, and that's kind of difficult to just
Well,
pick up and
okay.
go.
We'll do, let's see, how do I want to do this? All right, so we'll start here. Part of it was we had lived there for 59 and a half years.
That's
So
hard to break
we,
away from if you think about it.
not real, well, again, it all depends on where you are. I never fit in the city where I lived, ever. And I kind of like that because the city where you now live, I mean, technically we live in a township, but it's still the city. The idea of it is it's a very rednecky, not even with the charm of the South. For anybody who is interested in how does a town in New Jersey become a town in Tennessee or West Virginia or Kentucky, basically what happened, the city had one major industry. It was the glass manufacturing, and they would not hire African Americans, nor at that point the Hispanics were just basically Puerto Rican migrant laborers. They would not hire them. So they put out a call, and there's actually newspaper ads for it too, combing the South for people to come to Bridgeton, New Jersey and get a good paying job. And indeed, the glass factory was at that time, a good paying job. So they come up and they bring their things with them. They bring their food, which is good. They bring some of their music, and that's good. But they bring their sheets and their pillowcases, and which they use to form the Klan. And actually, Bridgeton, interestingly enough, has one of the longest running clans in New Jersey.
You don't think we have it anymore here?
Oh, it's still there. It's still there. Yeah. It's morphed and changed. I mean, think about that, Brian. That's a really interesting question. Do you really need the Klan now with MAGA?
Yeah, I
And
mean,
we'll come back. We'll come back to that.
Remember?
Yeah, I mean, so, yeah, the shirts, everything. But this was a very southern town, and so my dad was from the South, and so I had southern experience,
Do
but
you
it
have a
wasn't.
southern accent?
Yeah, a little bit, not a big one, because his family had moved. They were like the Jode family, literally like the Jode family, Grapes of Wrath. The farm literally again blew away in Texas, so they headed west and ended up dropping a passel of kids. And they had a passel. My dad was one of 17.
Wow.
Dropping some kids leaving some kids in Texas, dropping some kids in Colorado, and then moving on out to Washington. And then World War II happens. My dad goes in the service, ends up in the city of Bridgeton at a kind of just a fun night, and meets this woman, and she becomes my mother. Happy Mother's Day to my mother, who's no longer with us, and happy Mother's Day to any mothers that are listening to us. So, as I said, my careers were such that I had two. Well, I was in Bridgeton. One was journalism. I did that for 12 years. And people say, well, why'd you leave that? Well, there's a couple of reasons. One is I had a son who I'd never seen. I mean, literally. And, he was getting the age where he was going to be involved heavily in sports. You saw that. I wanted to be there for him. And I'd been certified as an English teacher. So I did that for 20 years. And then I worked for Johns Hopkins, and then I retired. How did we end up here? We sat down one Friday night, actually, and we said, okay. And you and Ronnie may do this at some point too, more now, because you have the freedom to do other things. So we knew we wanted to leave. I said, so Judy said, you go first. Where do you want to go? Yeah, I'm coming back to that, and Dunscap is right, but we'll talk about that because that's a very important concept. So as I say, we sit down, we're gonna have this talk, and she said, you go first. I said, I want to live in New Orleans. And she said, one day after the divorce, you can go to New Orleans. It's not her favorite city. It is mine. She then said, what about Boston? I said, when the temperatures are the same, we can go. And we threw out New York and started laughing because we don't have enough money to get across the bridge in New York City. Philadelphia had always been our city. So we kind of looked at it and said, why would we move to Philly, when we're 45 minutes away and our house is paid for and everything? So Judy actually mentioned, she said, what about Crystal City, which is, as we say, 3 metro stops from Washington, D.C. And we were aware of that because our son, when he got his doctorate, and then his significant other, now his wife, she got her master's at Maryland. And when she got her, finished her master's before he finished his doctorate, they got a place here. It's actually the same apartment complex where we live, called Crystal Plaza in Crystal City. And so we came here for a year, Bri. Mm-hmm. And it fit us. It fit us so well. Again, let's see, what have I done since I've been here? You mentioned that. I came with no plan. I mean, none. Just, okay, we'd go there. Basic plan was we'd go there for a year and then we'll decide where we want to go. So the first thing is we decided we liked it and we're going to stay. So we did that. There are tremendous advantages. One of which is we are 3 metro stops from Washington, D.C. Put it in perspective for those of you who know the area. I always do these figures, but we're 1.9 miles from the Pentagon and 4.6 from the White House, which means the Smithsonian's and Library of Congress and all the think tanks and all the art museums. And so much in D.C. is free. However, I won't go into great detail, but I will say this. Post-COVID, it's a completely different city, and it will never be the same. Never. But it still has a lot to offer, and again, being free. So first, let's see what happened. Oh, I know. Lord, I'm going backwards here. As you may well feel, or anybody does, you made some contacts in here. As I mentioned, I'd done some work with Johns Hopkins, and some friends that I'd made there had opened their own consulting company here in D.C., educational consulting company. And they said, you'll come work for us. I said, I'm retired. I'm not going to do that. They said, I'll just come in and give it a talk. So I went in, I started out 1 day a week, and of course ended up 5 days a week for 4.5 years. And that was interesting. It was something different. I'd never worked in a district as big as Washington, D.C., and I never traveled for work like I did for that. So it was a fitting way. And I just realized at the end of that 4.5 years that there was nothing I was going to do to help education other than go back in a classroom, and I wasn't going to do that. So then we actually moved to Atlanta for 14 months to be with our grandchildren. They've moved all over the country, indeed, well, all over the world. They spent time in Australia. But anyway, we went down there for 14 months. That didn't work out. They moved. And so back here we came. Then that's when I started this project that I've expanded, talking about my generation, which allows me to write, podcast, and blog, and do a number of things. And I have a book out. Another one's coming this year. And I did 3 years at the museum. For any of you who don't know what that is, I think it's one of the greatest things ever built. It was 6 stories of the history of news. And of course, being a newsman and a junkie. And the nice thing is we were all involved. So it was like Old Home Week. And I did that. And then it closed. I did the last First Amendment tour for it. And on 2019, locked its doors. And 2020, we all know what happened then. COVID comes and changed our lives for a couple of years. And that brings us to now, when just this month, I unveiled this new expanded program talking about my generation. And from time to time, with shameless self-promotion and using all the advantages, I'll mention what's going on. But basically, it's all things baby boomer, a lot of pop culture, which I believe is very important. And of course, it has a political element, which people on this channel would be interested in. So, that's kind of the idea is what I found, I can't mention for anybody or say to anybody else. I've had more job offers than I ever did, but it makes sense, Bry, because in a classroom, you're you're in the classroom. What kind of job offer are you going to get? It would be another education job, if that, or you went to a workshop or something. When I was a reporter, yeah, I used to get. In fact, I don't know if I've ever even told you this, Brian. It's tough being a reporter at time for family. And at one point, Judy had it. I mean, I was, I also had some other problems that went along with it. I was an alcoholic and a drug addict, so that didn't help. But it was time consuming, and I got this offer. It was a really good offer. It was a great offer, in fact, to go with a public relations firm. And I lasted 2 days and walked out. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. So, again, I wouldn't advise people to take jobs when it isn't them. I did it. I learned a valuable lesson, which is don't do something that someone else wants you to do, even if it's someone you love dearly, like your wife, if it involves a job. And you just don't do that. And let's see, anything? No, that's about it. Never did end up living near our grandchildren, but we visit frequently. In fact, we're leaving this week. It is our granddaughter's high school graduation. And these things that come, right? They come so quickly. That's why we say, oh, time flies. Well, we were there the day after she was born. She was born in Reno. And that was 18 years ago. And now suddenly it's been 18 years and, what? You say, but it has been that long. And then we have, and the nice thing is, she worked, I don't know if she worked hard. She's really smart. But she'll be valedictorian of her class, which is very nice. And based on that and her test scores, she's going to college for up to 5 years, which could include 4 years or 3 years. And 2 years, 1 or 2 years of master for absolutely no money. It is a free ride all the way around. So that certainly is something that I mean, I don't know. She and I talked about it. I mean, she understands that, you can't take all the credit for it, but she did work. She did do that, but. And that does, but you know how people, work hard and pay off. Well, it doesn't for anybody or for everybody. In this case, it did. So I guess what I'm telling you, Brian, and anybody out there who isn't retired, you really don't know. In fact, that maybe should be the theme of tonight's show, because one of the things I want to talk about later is something we don't know, but it doesn't look good, what we do know. So let's turn it back to you, Brian, for this a little bit. Again, we're family, so we're kind of taking some time here to tell you what's coming up. You mentioned that you're retiring. You mentioned that you'll probably spend more time working on this show. I know some of your other projects, music and stuff. How do you see it? At this point now, 5 weeks away, you're 5 weeks out. What's your mindset?
Well, because I think in the moment, we had a conversation last week where I think you came up with the perfect word, and that is purgatory. I feel like I'm in purgatory because there's so many things that one has to do at the end of the year, and not only do you have a lot of things that you have to do as a teacher, but you also have a district that is actually kind of looking forward to next year, so they're trying to get a lot of things in place. They're throwing teachers into your classroom to watch your classroom management, and while I don't mind, I've had people come in, it's just that any teacher knows they just don't want to have people dropping in on your class out of nowhere. It's because you never know what's going to happen, and it can only generally hurt you more than help you. Mm-hmm. So a lot of things to do before the end of the year. Even something as simple as cleaning up the room, which for me is going to be difficult because I tend to put everything, in the filing cabinets, and I'm at the point now where I don't like just dumping everything in a trash can, but I don't know what else to do. I think that I'm just going to have to do that.
I would say. I left I don't think I took anything out of school except some of my own books. I gave books that I didn't want to the library that I collected over the years. I didn't bring anything home. Now I know there are teachers, again, who take everything, and they can go back.
I can't fit anything, Dave, and that's the thing.
No, and I don't think, well, we couldn't have it anyway.
It's a shame that they're not going to probably continue the Russian program, so... you're to throw valuable material away, Just like the business
Well,
stuff, I'm throwing that away too. And
yeah,
it's
no,
like
I
you're
mean,
throwing away something you
again,
know it has some worth, but you've
but
got to
again,
throw it.
is it that worth to go through it? You know, like if you have
No, and
hundreds,
that's the point because I want to
yeah,
move
it's
ahead. I
not.
want to just be able to say, okay, take that off the desk. You touch it once, and then it goes. And that's for anybody out there. Forget about the fact that I'm retired, but just leaving things there and then trying to decide, oh, I'll just move this for a second. Oh, I'll do it later. There is that expression, touch once, and just that's it. And just
Yeah.
you don't
Well,
need if you've got something that you haven't used for 3 years, you might as well throw it out.
I would very much agree with that. Again, though, each person is different. I'm not. I'm not a. What should I say? I'm definitely. Well, neither Judy or I are hoarders. I'm definitely not a saver, but I am a saver of certain things. Now, there's no question if you were to come into our one-bedroom apartment, there's actually one. Well, not counting the bathrooms, it's one, two, three rooms. Okay, a good-sized living room, a good-sized kitchen, and our bedroom, which is very large. And we have a number of storage cabinets, and not just cabinets, but also closets. That's why we took this building. In fact, I have as I mentioned before, I have my music studio in one of the closets. They're so big. I collect books, and Judy kind of points that out. She said, "You're done. You've got them everywhere." So again, but that's something that I just put that in a different category. Papers and stuff, no. When we sold our house, I had, I don't know, but Brian, maybe 9 bookcases in our house. And I left most, we had a yard sale, whatever I didn't sell, I left there. And I never thought I'd be involved in education again. And then I was. So I did come back to Bridgeton one time and took a couple of the books back from that. But, it's a time to downsize. One of the things we said, we weren't planners, but we knew we were going to leave. For example, the last 3 or 4 years we lived in our home, when we replaced something, we replaced it for apartment living, not for big house living. And people say, "Don't you miss the city?" No, not really. The longer you're away from something, the less it becomes. What does happen is when you live 59 and a half years somewhere, you have a lot of ties, a lot of people. But they too go on with their lives. And the one thing that happens to all of us, and I don't want to say modeling or, down, but as you get up in age, friends, family, more physical problems for yourself and for others. We're now averaging probably, I don't want to say, well, maybe, we probably average about 7 or 8 deaths a month, of which 3 or 4 are local and the others are like people that you know. And you never know, Brian, what'll hit you. Like an artist that I really liked, and it's really bothered me that he died for a little bit, was Dave Mason. I always liked Dave Mason. And I mean, I got to work with him, and that was kind of neat. But again, you think, no, none of us get out of here alive. And
it's a good thing in a certain sense because it is a reminder that it pushes. If you're really intelligent, it pushes you to live.
Well, also, think about it, Brian. I mean, would you like to live forever? Well, the Twilight Zone had a number of shows on that. The downside of that,
we get awfully boring.
And yes, and also it depends on what everybody else be living.
If I
too.
were comfortable, but that saying, okay, my teeth won't change, my eyes won't change, and
well, that I mean, that is not going to happen. I read somewhere once, and if anybody out there, we got some really, really intelligent viewer/listeners. If anybody knows something, I remember a few years ago reading an article that this one, expert on aging said the human body's about the extension of a human body would be 116, give or take. That after that, and you find, I don't even know if there's, I think the oldest is 113 or 114 that we have recorded, today. Yeah, there you go. All your painters can join the George Bush Painting Club. I mean, think about that. Now, there's a good object lesson in politics and life. Did you see George Bush as a painter? I didn't. Right? I mean, and he loves it, and he's good at it. I've been to one of his exhibits, and he's pretty good at it. Oh yeah. Oh God, Veg. Yes. Well, and I will tell you this though, Brian and Veg and everybody out there, you also tend to we've moved one in retirement. Let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Now I'm sorry, 4 times. Well, counting the one here would be 5. First one here. 3 of them have been in this apartment building. And then I moved to Atlanta and I moved back. But even in a year, you collect. Like we'll clean it up and we'll go and you just get things and then you just say, well, this can't go, that can't go. One thing that I thought Judy and I did, which I haven't heard before, I think this was kind of cool that we were able to do it. It was basically her idea. We have one big tub, and in that you can save anything that you want. Like I have baby stuff in there, all the way through, but just the highlights. But you can't have more than one tub of the pan. Yeah, and well, again, every once in a while, and as I say, not being a saver, I never had that much, but there were some things like I'd kept my blue books from Villanova. Don't ask me why. Maybe I thought the Pope would want to read them someday, and some things like that. But unfortunately, switching gears here a little bit, we have a person who I wish would retire tonight, and he happens to be that 4.6 miles from where I'm broadcasting, and that would be Donald Trump. So every week, we look at Mr. Trump, and what's your overall view of Mr. Trump? It's
not even Trump right now, Dave. I think it's just the entire Republican Party after what happened in Tennessee, what happened in Virginia. Here essentially we had a plebiscite, and they're just going to say F you, and if you do it in Texas, which they didn't even do it in Texas, they just decided they're going to redistrict. Right. You're fine. So this is why I entitled this thing Boycott. And we talked about this years ago when Trump was originally president, his first term. But we should have the African American, or all Caucasian or Hispanic athletes just quit these schools that are from these states to do this. That's one thing we could do. I don't know that people will do it, but
you see, what's interesting. I'm cutting you off, but I've been thinking about this today a lot. Because, of course, it's out there. Definitely civic-minded people are telling, it makes sense, telling black athletes, and you extend it to any athlete who felt.
Yeah, because I think it's important that any decent athlete, I don't care what color you are, you got to fight the right fight. You can't just depend on African-American people to carry the burden on it, No. It just would be more effective because they're generally the better athletes.
Well, I think especially in the sports of basketball,
especially football and basketball,
and they are, and you can say what you want, they are the 2 big sports in college.
Right?
Yes,
they're the money makers. There are other hockey's,
but
has a tough time making money because they can't deal with the price of keeping.
And
ice
I think that may be that it'll be interesting to see. Okay, go back to a year that I think is the closest in my well. Let me do it this way. I was not aware, because I was just born, of the McCarthy era, the Red Scare and all that. I've read about that a lot, but I don't know. But the year that strikes me as the closest to what we're living now is 1968. It has for a long time, ever since Trump came in. And the parallels and the rhymes of history get more. But the difference was there was an established kind of feeling that protest worked, and I was talking about this, a bunch of us old ex-radicals got together down here, just this group of us. And we're talking about, and we said, through all that, Brian, the difference is, in 1968, you still felt an optimism that doesn't exist today. It just doesn't. You can, it's just not there. It's just not part of the time.
Not there.
And it doesn't matter where you look. Now, is it, we could talk about money has replaced it. And that's one of the questions, even with athletes. Now with the NIL and, the fact that they get paid to play. If you could, think about this, Brian. If you were a black athlete and you could get $1 million in endorsements and stuff from playing at Alabama, and the only other school that you offered something was in New York, and they were willing to give you $200,000. What do you do? I don't, it's easy to say.
Well, there was a movie made about that. You do the right thing, but I know where you're going, and most people are people, and they're going to be motivated by money in many cases. So this is why it may not be effective, because they'll just say, look, we'll give you $1 million to stay. And, if you're coming from a family that makes less than $30,000 a year,
Well,
you know,
yes. Well, I know they just, speaking of making money, it depends on where you live and what you do. But they have now come out here in Arlington, where we live, a family of two, not a family of more, a family of two needs minimally $187,000 to live an upper middle class life. Think about that. Now, there are jobs here, sometimes a single person can get that even, but that's still a lot of money. And I never thought I'd be the type of person, and recently I've been doing, I really don't like the grocery store charging all that money. I want to know where that money's going. I really do. It's just amazing because it's just little things, right? But when you're starting to looking, I like fruit popsicles that are no sugar, and they're now up list price. They're more than $1 a popsicle. That's insane. Next, we're about if gas prices continue to rise, we're about a month away here. We have a gas station. There's very few gas stations, interestingly, in D.C., obviously in the city, and even out here until you get further out, right? But we have one right across the street from us, and it is now, $4.89 a gallon of gas. Now, again, higher prices than some, but still there. And I don't know that people, I don't know how families are going to do this. I really don't, Brian.
Right. It's unfathomable, really is.
Like I said, again, comparing things. I mentioned,
cars are $50,000, $60,000, $70,000.
Oh, I know.
Ronnie got her oil changed, and she looked at the Mustangs for $71,000.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter because there is no such thing like you can say, well, I'll try to cut back, but there is no such thing as cheap food anymore. There is fast food,
right? And that's not
which
cheap.
is bad for you,
right?
And that's an irony too, if you think about it. Okay, the worst food. Go to the grocery store. The worst food is the cheapest. Usually, because I don't know, they want to kill us. I don't know, but the idea of it is
it's them to make it. I mean, geez.
Yeah, and then you've also got what they call the food deserts in the city, and again, the reason for that is they say, they being the owners, victims of robbery. Well, robbery is a socioeconomic crime. It's not a racial crime. So it all just kind of
and
works.
There is a lot of that going on. I mean, kids tell me that people going to Wawa, which is a convenience store. It's very popular on the East Coast. For those of you who aren't really familiar with it, and they just go in and just take.
Well, and
you go to Walmart and you have a lot of the products have to be glass under glass.
Well, that's what I first noticed that.
And I don't endorse stealing. I don't like anybody steals anything.
No, but again, well, sometimes I do have one funny educational story. So I used to mess with the kids. I used to have fun with them, and it worked for me. I wouldn't recommend it for everybody. So I always around Christmas time say, don't forget your teacher. Remember, I'm working. Jokingly, bring me a big present. So this one years ago, man, way early in my teaching, young lady brought me a very nice sweater, and I unwrapped it. I said, "Oh man, oh God, now what?" I said, no, I said, well, thank you, but she said, oh, don't worry, I shoplifted it. I said, okay, and I wore it. But they actually had, Brian, in Bridgeton, I don't know if you're aware of this, I don't have in other cities, and I don't know if it still exists, but they actually had a steal on consignment group that you would give them your order, and they would go out and get it for you.
I don't endorse that. I just don't like it.
Well, of course not. Of course not. But what
and
do you do?
I do know it's a socioeconomic thing, but that's not something that should be done. I mean, we have to work around it.
Well, again, I understand that, but I've always been of the type that I much prefer a person who's hungry and steals a loaf of bread than I do Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and all these others that cause it. And again, I read something in 1970, I think, 70 in the 70s. There were like 16 billionaires in America. That was all. And now, and again, a lot of that is technology. And, people say we pay for things. And the big one coming, and it's something I'm going to work on, part of this project that I'm doing, is AI and where it goes and what it does. Now, we start with AI this way. AI is a thing. It is neither good nor bad. A thing cannot be good or evil in itself. the Bible, a gun, anything, a computer, AI, your car, a thing is good or bad or good or evil, if you really want to go to the extreme, in how it's used and who's using it. But one of the things AI, looking at it, I'm certainly not scientifically minded enough to know all the ins and outs, but what I'm looking at, I don't think this is going to create jobs. This is going to be a job taker. I really do.
In general. Right.
And I base this in general. And people say, well, why do you say? I say, well, look, just look at your Walmart. Look at your Target. Look at your grocery store. Okay? The other day, we were grocery shopping. We go to a chain called Harris Teeter. It's big in Virginia. It's near us. And let's see, they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They have 10 cash registers or lines, right? 2 of them were occupied. That was it. 8 were open. And then they have 10 self checkouts, right? So they were actually doing 12 checkouts with 3 people. That's what automation can do. That's what AI will do. AI, I've been using it a lot, playing with it, trying to figure out where to go. The one that freaked me out this week, and this was pretty interesting. I've been working with it for about a year, and as I said, I'm doing it as an experiment. But I wanted to see how much. I call it HAL because, of course, in 2001 it calls it Dave. We can't do that, So pretend I'm playing in the movie. But I said, Hal, I want to see how well you know me. I said, I'm going to give you 3 things that books, movies, whatever, TV shows that really influenced me as a young person, and I want you to run with that and tell me how that fits in my life today. Why you could, what you think. Brian, I couldn't have written it any better. I couldn't have. I mean, now it doesn't know me. It knows what I fed it, so it doesn't know me. But I don't think there's anybody in the world, including maybe myself. Well, I mean, I would have known it, but I couldn't have written it as well as it did.
Right.
So again,
there are clues. I mean, there's enough input. But it is fascinating. It's absolutely because it's taking tabs.
And you're working more on the music end, which I want to get into it eventually, but not right now because I'm staying with the writing end. But then you get into great debate. If I write something, I will take credit for it. No question. I wrote it. If I wrote something with AI, how much of the credit can I take? And what I've come up with is I just announced that it was with AI. And you got to remember, too, I come from the world of journalism.
Aided by AI.
Well, I was always aided by editors, right? I mean, basically, no one writes themselves. I mean, you have proofreaders, you have editors, you have everything is a give and take. But in this case, it's a give and take with a machine, not a give and take with a person.
Right. And
one of the interesting things I read from somebody who was a journalist like I was and was talking about AI now, they said, the difference is your copy editors used to come to work drunk. AI is never drunk. And there's a point to that, but there's many downsides, and this is not the show to do it, but someday maybe we will do a show on politics and AI. The one place I'd like to leave that AI with, since we got here, is the fact that what AI has done and will continue to do even better is it will make truth and fiction harder to distinguish. It does. I mean, you can get accurate pictures now, and you don't know. I mean, right. Is it real or what was the old joke? Not joke, but they say, is it real or is it Memorex?
Right.
In this case, I don't know. Again, I hate this kind of stuff. Oh, it's a perfect stormer. We're in uncharted waters. Well, we are. I mean, we are in uncharted waters. Maybe some of the biggest we've been in.
This is unstoppable. It's
basically, Brian,
our whole world is going to change very quickly unless we destroy ourselves prior to that. It will completely change. And we won't see all of it. You and I won't, but some people
but
watching will.
What we have to base it on a lot is a lot of our science fiction, both in books and films and TV shows, have shown what AI can do run rogue, whether it's the Terminator, right? Whether it is 2001: A Space Odyssey. The one that's always stuck with me was it was a made-for-TV movie in the 1971, I guess, 71 or 72, called Colossus: The Forbidden Project, which basically, it's the idea of one of the underlying themes is even though some of these things are programmed for humanity, they decide on their own that the best way to preserve the world is to get rid of humans because humans are the damage to the world. And, that's kind of true. I mean,
Right.
if we did not have humans, that would be, I'm not going to sing what
I
a
mean, it's still
wonderful
a cruel
world.
world in terms of evolution, but
But
in terms of
it would,
destroying actual physical properties of the
right.
planet, yes, it's bad.
And the other thing about AI is we've now added to that. We have climate destruction, which is maybe we've passed the point of no return. We don't know. Certainly not good. We have nuclear, the potential for nuclear holocaust. We now have, because of travel and that kind of thing, we now have definitely the possibility of another and worse COVID. I don't know if you've been following the Haunter virus at all.
Yes, indeed.
It's not, it's not there. But what happened was something that was passed from bats to humans, right, has morphed and now go human to human.
And mice
So-
too, I believe, hantavirus. Yeah, mice
Yeah.
too.
Mice, rats. So now, and everybody's fixated on it because I don't know about you, Bri, but I mean, COVID was kind of unreal to me. I mean, it was like, what is going on? I mean, I go out, I went out all the time, but I went out by myself and, would walk and not be around people. And now we've added AI to the mix. And then we've added, which we've always had bad leaders, no question about that, everywhere in the world periodically. But we now have Donald Trump, Putin, Netanyahu, others who have, are.
Just about every country in the Middle East has a despicable leader.
And there you are, or a despicable group leading them, whether it's Hezbollah or, whatever. And we've had this thing before, and I don't know, back to the 1960s, since I've been looking a lot backwards and saying, you also had this idea of peace and love as a dream. And I don't know too many people today who really believe it is possible to have a world of peace and love. You can have sections of it. You can have segments of it. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know that peace and love are natural to human beings.
It'll take respect. I mean, it's not going to happen. It's just, we've been through this over and over again. We just look at, we are all animals. And we've talked about the territorial imperative. I mean, look, we keep trying to argue ourselves out of saying it, but we're no different than the animals, and we're not going to make it.
Maybe
you can't get three people in the same room to be able to get along. Why would countries get along?
And not to disagree with you, Brian, when you say we may be worse than the animals.
Yes, I mean, because we know better, and we're so much more dangerous.
We should yes, we should be able to be better. There's, as Anthony puts out, now again, I was raised with polio, not getting it because of, but if I'd been born 4 years before, a few years before, I remember seeing the iron lungs and the people in there. And that's another thing that's kind of, I mean, when you think about it, I mean, health-wise and science-wise, we're better than we ever were until you get a RFK Jr. and Trump. I mean, but I'm talking about where we could be.
Right.
And yet still we have
fundamental
problems.
We've discussed this too. We've done thought experiments about what would have happened if we didn't go through the dark ages.
Right.
We probably would have had computers maybe by this 17th century, maybe the 18th century. But we could have definitely cut this thing back 100, 200 years. So, what makes us any different now when you have somebody like a Kennedy or a Trump or anybody who's trying to stall any type of progress on climate or on science in general? You ban books. What will they be able to say if they can survive it 200 years from now?
I think
what would have happened?
The only difference we have right now, maybe, and it's not a significant difference, it's just we haven't burned any witches at the stake recently. And we haven't burned
other countries. They do
any scientists. I'm talking here in America, yes. But everything else, I mean, come on, it's, and you and I have, and it's good. I mean, we have a little basically agree. But in terms of religion and spirituality, there's, he says, but anybody has to say, I don't care who you are, that religion can be used poorly, can be employed to be evil. I'm talking about Christo-fascists. I'm talking about Christian nationalists. I'm talking about one of the most religious organizations of all time was the Ku Klux Klan.
Yeah, but the only way that it does help is if you have to cherry pick specific things being said,
and
you have to, and then you're just trying to placate these people who are trying to sell you invisible real estate, and it's just,
well,
I mean, it sounds so crazy, but I have to say to people, grow up, just grow the fuck up.
But Brian, again, we've argued, not argued.
We can't be apologizing for this,
Well, I'm not. What I'm saying is, I think it gets to two basic human desires, I guess. One is an aversion to having to think hard about the issues. If you're in a religion, it tells you what to do, right? I don't have to think.
Yeah, but they believe in absolute morality. But then
And
again, we're,
I'm not saying it works. I'm saying what the attraction is. And then the second thing is people like to be in groups or joiners. Now, I'm neither, and I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying, in fact, the other day we were having a discussion, some of us here, about, and it came up, are you a joiner or not? I don't know. And I went back, Brian, I've never joined anything. I mean, no. When I say, I did join the teachers union. I mean, that kind of thing. But I mean, as far as Rotary or Kiwanis I played on sports teams. I consider that a little different. Bowling league, but never.
Right. Well,
that just wasn't.
You're not agoraphobic, Dave. But as an outsider, but knowing you as a good friend,
right?
You like me. You just don't feel like you want to do something. You don't do it.
Well,
you remember you told me the
also,
story how one time you felt really, really bad. And you had to make a decision eventually. Like your friends were throwing rocks, and we've all kind of been in that situation where we do something that we didn't want to do. And then eventually you say to yourself, fuck it, because sometimes you just feel something you just feel that it's not right. And it's very intuitive. But to me, it's really easy, you don't want to be in crowds, not because you don't necessarily like people, but the danger of it. You go to a strip club, that parking lot, things could be waiting for you out there that you don't want. A drunk could be out there.
What things could be waiting for you out there that you do want?
Well,
no, I know.
But very unlikely. Very unlikely. I'm just saying that you're flirting with danger when you're around
don't
people.
You think? And we've known each other for a long, long time, and I think that we are not the norm in many.
No, and that's why we have part of the problem. I'm not saying that we're something special, but
no. It's just because we don't. Or I don't want somebody to tell me what to do, whether that person is God or the person is.
And by the way, I don't like God. By the way, folks. I'm sorry to a lot of people are religious who watch this show, or at some point in time. Ever since I don't know, Dave. When you were young, just put yourself in 6-year-old David Price.
Okay.
To me, when my mother or father mentioned any kind of biblical story or anything about God, God punishes, I had this adversarial relationship. I didn't see him as, they say God is love, but most of it was revolved around being sent to burning hell, or he's going to kill the firstborns, and all this kind of shit. I never had a respect for it. I feared it in a way that I don't like this bad thing.
You know what's funny? I've thought about that a lot. I looked in my early years, and I was raised in the church for my first 18 years. I looked at it as mythology even then. And I liked the stories. I liked the Greek mythology. I liked the Roman mythology.
You might learn more from it.
And I like the mythology of the Bible. It's a mythology, okay? It's from a time when people were trying to explain the inexplicable. That's really what it is. But it also has laws and it talked about the culture and why you can't do it. Think about it. You don't really want to eat pork necessarily over in the Middle East because pork spoils quickly. There's some things in there that are like that. Now, whether that's going to put you in heaven or not, of course, that's a whole difference. It's also, anybody with any sense can look at it and see that most religions come out of a patriarchal
absolutely
society.
And there's so many absurdities. In fact, again, I'll say this: if you defend that kind of thing, if you cherry pick it, it's almost like it's an absurdity. Because for example, I know that you know that most of religion is bullshit. We've had discussions.
I would agree with that.
You know, but it's almost an absurdity because you're very nice to people. You don't want to hurt their feelings. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. But
see, I guess
but there is an absurdity to the logic of defending it, though, and you would admit it yourself.
You know what's funny, and it just came to me now. Thank you. Sometimes when you're talking, you can feel. I treat religion the same way. No, I treat a person who's in religion. First of all, religions are not good. They're not. Okay, organized religions.
Over the history of the world, they've done nothing
they're not
good.
Now you got to get to the individuals. They're just like religion is a thing, Brian. It depends on who's using it and how it's being used.
But don't you think that, for example, you see, well, this person is a good Christian and they're good. Why is the next person an asshole? I think that it doesn't have to do with, per se, religion. I think it has a lot to do with, again, you've said it, I've said it, popular culture, the people that are around you. I don't know how much of a religion has an influence on actual behavior. I don't even think people read the Bible. How many things can you quote from the Bible, with any kind of sense? It makes it makes no sense to me.
And this is a fascinating thing, how this wandering conversation, okay, which we've been in a lot recently, which is kind of fun.
And this is the way we go.
But bringing us back, this week, one of the big stories that I thought was the golden calf, literally the golden calf tribute to Donald Trump
Mar-a-Lago
at the golf course. Yeah. Now, basically, Trump was taken for a fool. They said it was gold. It's not gold. It's gold plated, and he charged him as if it was solid gold. So Trump lost out about $11 million, which is great. Okay. But besides that, what happens is they had a ministerium, a group of ministers came down, they're dedicated. And they first said, this is not a golden calf. We believe it is a golden calf, you dumb fucks. Okay. So you got that. But you also had the one minister who said, look, Donald Trump does know more about the Bible than Pope Leo, because, Leo and Trump, Leo's taking the high road, but he understands. And,
right.
He's saying no. I just finished, I'm fascinated by him simply because, like I said, it's just passing. But I left Villanova University as a graduate in May of 73, and he arrived in August of 73. So we missed each other by 3 months? I mean, I never met the man or anything, but our experiences were somewhat the same. And so I saw this, they just came out with a biography and I read it. I wasn't impressed with the writing, but there's some facts in there. And basically, if that was an accurate picture of Pope Leo, he is the antithesis of Donald Trump, okay? In every way, shape, and form. Now, I'm not saying as a pope, I'm saying as a man.
Right.
But another thing that's interesting, his older brother John, is a devout Trumper.
I heard that. Well, that's what Trump said.
No, it's true. No, it's Pope has said it too. And so he experiences some of the same things we do, even though on this level. Now, he didn't become infallible the day he was, there's that infallibility thing that we don't go. But that's another thing with groups. So groups have to have leaders. The one group that didn't, we saw how that worked out. Didn't work out real well because if you don't have leaders, you just have to. I mean, groups they're too diverse. But again, then you're at the mercy of the leader. But Donald Trump, as I said, it's just kind of interesting that Trump is an embodiment of all that could be wrong with religion because he uses it all the time. Every time I go by the church where he held the Bible upside down, I just smile.
Don't you see, even in Russia, there was always this symbiotic relationship between the church and the government. I mean, look how Jerry Falwell got involved with religion and the government. They work together. And so it's not so much Trump as just religion in general has this, this way of being like an octopus and getting involved in politics to push their agenda.
Well, you know what? Now, there's two Donald Trumps. Donald Trump of the first term presidency, who was bad and evil, and Donald Trump of the second term presidency, who's bad, evil, and insane. Whether it's dementia, whatever, okay? But one thing he does have an ability, because of all his bad traits, of being an ultimate con man. Nothing bothers him. And everything's about himself. I will be fascinated if we ever get to the true story of how much money he has amassed since the second presidency. I'm going to say it's in the billions.
Yes,
Easy.
I would agree with you. You know,
Some
but
of, I mean,
I think
some of it's already been reported.
he'll
They said,
do himself in physically somehow that it won't matter how much he has. You know, he'll be some type of irony in it. You know, he'll.
well, the question becomes, and I don't know an answer for this. If you're somebody like Trump or Jeff Bezos, and I'm not equating the two but they're, do some bad things, or Elon Musk or whomever, Peter Thiel.
Right.
What happens when they're alone at night just before they go to sleep? I mean, do they have any feelings at all?
I don't
They
think
don't.
Trump can he? I mean, if you're
I
a
don't think so.
narcissist, can you have? I mean, that was like Hitler. Hitler
That's
was
that's
the original narcissist in terms of
and
the
that's the
expression, right?
idea. And Trump is, you know, I mean, he exhibits certainly traits of a number of non-admirable categories: narcissist, um, psychopath, sociopath. There are elements in there now. Clinically, I'll leave that to the clinicians to say that. Well, the time's getting short, and first of all, I want to thank everybody as we do every week. It's really nice. I love. We didn't say too much tonight because we're kind of involved in our conversation, but the idea of having a conversation that stretches across borders, sometimes depending on who's there, and that's kind of nice. I do go back and read all the comments that I don't get to as we're doing this show, but it's time for that kind of wrap up question, and I'll ask it and then I'll go first tonight. Let you close out the show. So the question Brian and I always do is, a week has gone by, more optimistic, less optimistic than you were a week ago. I'm going to go with less optimistic for a couple. One is the main one is I live in Virginia. I voted and my vote was negated. Okay. That is something that should not happen in the United States of America. And it did. Now, we don't know the outcome of that yet. We don't, but we pretty much know, Brian, you're the king of this. Anything against the Supreme Court, you're probably not going to win it. If
Right.
if it's not MAGA, you're not going to win it. So there's that. The second thing is, I kind of bought into that, and it's still good in a way. But the falling poll numbers for Trump, first of all, we don't know how accurate the polls are. But secondly, it's still coming back 33, 34%. They're not going anywhere. They're with him. They're with him win. They're with him lose. They're with him draw. And next week, I've been doing some research. I'm going to talk about this, of looking at some ways that I believe, Trump will actually try to assure that he retains the presidency, or at least if that can't be done, the party does it.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm with Anthony, and I don't have any problem with saying that. It will be a good day for me, for America, well, my family, my family, America, and the world that both exist now and the future when Trump is dead. And I don't, people say, oh, that's terrible. That's horrible. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's truth. It is the truth. In fact, I'll carry it so far as to say tonight, somebody has to die. If I had a pick, he'd be up there near the top of the list, if not the very top. Your thought, Brian?
Well, first of all, I agree with you. I am very pessimistic after what we saw happened in Virginia and Tennessee. We know that everything's. I mean, there's no hope at the level of the courts. This is exactly what happens in Russia. There's anything political with the courts goes in Putin's favor. Well, now it's the same thing. No matter what happens, John Roberts' court is going to save Trump, and they're going to. And this because we have to be honest about this, because it's going to hit us hard in the head, and that is, they're going to allow what went on in Texas. They didn't even have a plebiscite, and they decide they're going to redistrict, and they gained a couple of votes. What happened in Virginia was a plebiscite, and they did vote for it, and we know what happened there with this Virginia Supreme Court. So they're there to play the shenanigans. This is the way it is. And I said we have to fight almost like a guerrilla war, and this is why I titled this the boycott. There's got to be things that you have to embarrass them, and you have to get some help from outside the country. Where Europe somehow works. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
But
No, I think Brian,
we are in. This is it. If you
we're
have
here.
a court, Dave mentions, well, you have 30% here and 30% there and 30. That shit doesn't fly when the courts are against you. So, and in Trump's case, they're for him. So we
I
will
think
have an essential Hitler here.
you just said something I think bears significance of repeating. I think honestly, we're going to have some outside help, whether from Europe, whether it's from someplace. I don't know, what that will be. I don't. I mean, we just don't know.
Well,
And
then the governors of the blue states, just like Tolstoy said, if you have, I'm going to paraphrase, you have evil people, there have to be good people to counteract them. Well, it's the same thing here. The governors of the blue states have to take the initiative, and they have to start making contacts, north to Canada, south to Mexico, and you got to put a monkey wrench in the spokes of the Republicans. If that means don't, especially if you're a high power state like California, don't trade with, Arkansas, Alabama, and all these hillbilly states. And it's a shame because there are good people. And look, we got Anthony. You got more people in Texas who are Democrats than in New Jersey. But, Texas is a real thorn because you've got people like Abbott. So you have to play hardball with these people, Dave. And
no, I know.
it has
No,
to be
no,
played. You cannot play by the. This is no Michelle Obama.
and you said that, and you're quite accurate. It's very nice what Michelle said,
It's
and
politically
it would
correct.
be nice if we could live in that world,
It's not there.
but we don't.
And you have to get so nasty that you actually go below them in a certain way. I mean, or at
The
least
only thing, yes, no, I don't disagree with you. The
it
only
has
thing
to
that
hurt them so much that they say, "Uncle."
all right, I'm going to leave it with this thought.
We're smart enough to figure it out too.
This is what bothers me about dealing with them. And when them, I'm going to say they're leaders, not necessarily the MAGA people, but they're leaders. I don't know if they have any shame, Brian.
Well, no, because like I said, they're these quasi-religious people who somehow think they're chosen in a way, and they're going to go on to the la la, and then they not only want it there and then, they want it now here,
And yeah, and I think
and we can't let
I
them have
think
it.
I think shame. You were talking earlier. We're talking about this one time. I talked about where I was with a group that threw rocks, and I threw rocks, and it's so. But I said I'm not going to do this anymore, and that was the only time I ever did it, and I was a kid. But part of that was shame.
Right.
I mean, shame is not a bad thing.
It teaches you.
It
It's a
does.
regret that will teach you.
Now, and shame gives you an opportunity to recognize guilt, and guilt gives you an opportunity to do two things: apologize if you can, if it means anything, and if not, change your behavior in
Change
such
your
a way,
behavior, right?
that you don't feel that shame. But when you have, well, let's just run the trip. Does RFK Jr.? Nah, he's nope. Kash Patel, no. Just take the whole cabinet, and even the ones who aren't there anymore. And last thing, next time maybe we'll talk a little bit more about this too, is Trump's dealing with women. Notice that everyone who's been dismissed so far has been a woman from his cabinet. Also notice that this week again, there's some debate, but I'm pretty sure it's what he muttered under his breath to a black female reporter, "You bitch." Well, okay, you might feel that, but is that the person you want in the Oval Office?
There's still plenty of women
certainly,
who are Trumpers, and that's hard to believe, but
oh no, I know,
there we go. I mean,
Yes,
that is a psychosis. That is
I would agree. And let's
an escape from reality.
let's let Veg, the aging hippie who's back tonight, have the last word. Veg just said, Orban is toast, speaking, of course, of the former leader of Hungary, who I was just there a few months ago, and I actually thought he was so formidable he could not be beaten, but he did. So, Veg, you gave us our message for tonight. Don't give up. And that's all we can do. We can't give up. Anything else is, we can't give up.
And in the nicest way, be as cruel as possible to them so that they have to capitulate. and I don't know how you do that, but we're smart enough. People are smart enough, and I think the first thing is, I mean, get everybody who's an athlete and say, I'm not playing in Tennessee anymore, and you guys can lose every goddamn game, and I can't wait because I'll watch it. I'll watch you lose 73-0, you know, and it'll be like Jack Johnson beating Jeffries, you know, back in 10 or something. It'll be, yeah, I'll enjoy the knockout. You know what I mean? But that's for another time. So, all right, Dave, I got to go. You got to go, and everybody's got to go. But thank you, and good Veg. Great to see you again. Great to see everybody. But Veg, we haven't seen you for a while. I know you've been, you know, under a lot of pressure. So it's great to see you. And I know we all have things that happen to us. You know, Dave was out for a while. I've had my scares with health recently, and you know, we just keep, as Veg said, just don't give up. You know, don't give up.
That's good life. That's good life advice.
And why make it
any
easy for him anyway? I can't find them. Okay, there's the mouse. All right. So, all right. Good night, everybody, and we'll see you next week. We're getting closer to July, and show's going to get better. All right. Das swidania. Spokojnej noci. Night night.